And the sign says you are live, which means we are live. So, welcome to another show. We are here to close out Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy. And we're doing that with my guest here tonight, Knight from the Night Watch Zone, who's been here through the previous movies and is now here to close it out with me. So welcome to the show, man.
Thanks a lot, man. It's always good. Always good to be here. Always good.
Yeah, dude. Um, it's been 12, I guess, 12 years it took Carpenter to round out this trilogy, which
hmm
is quite a while. Um, I guess to the passing movie fan or the passing viewer, I'm surprised how many people didn't know that this was even a trilogy.
Yeah.
Or how many people don't even know about the second or third movie.
Absolutely.
There are so many people out there that are familiar with the thing, but then their interest kind of drops off when it comes to the second. Oh, I never got around to that one, or oh, I heard a lot about In the Mouth of Madness, but just never saw it at all.
Yeah.
So they're missing this entire experience of putting them together. So when I started doing this show, one of the things that I definitely wanted to have the experience of covering was all three movies together.
hmm Yeah.
Because I don't know if I had ever really sat down and watched them. Like, you sit down sometimes and you could watch Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
or something like that, or, the Star Wars, 4 through 6, or, whatever your trilogy is, or, maybe all of them. But I don't know that I had ever really sat down and watched all three of these consecutively as a
hmm
trilogy.
hmm
Um, they're all individually tremendous.
I agree.
Yeah. But when you put them together, they're just relentlessly bleak.
Yeah. That is the word. It is very, very dark stuff. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about that.
because every movie is about the end of all things.
hmm
Every movie is just about the end of everything. But
Yeah.
if you're ready, I'm ready. So I think we should get to covering this movie. Yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Here we go then. So we're tackling what is perhaps Carpenter's best movie of the three. I still say that Prince of Darkness is my favorite, but
hmm
I saw this movie for the first time yesterday in quite a while, and it's a hell of a something.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. This movie, it's a ride. It's definitely a ride, and it's interesting because this is the one I saw, this was my third, of the three that I had seen.
Mm,
And interestingly enough, when it came out, and obviously I was, whatever I was, a teenager or whatever,
mm,
I didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. And I can't really remember why, but I saw it when I was younger. Can't remember exactly when,
same.
but I didn't pay attention a lot to it. But when I was lucky enough, I don't know, I must have been in my early 20s or whatever, and I kind of stumbled upon it. I think it was on, I don't know, it might have been on TV or something like that. But regardless, I
Mm,
saw it and I was like, holy shit,
yeah,
this is a good movie.
yeah.
And I think you mentioned this when we talked about Prince of Darkness. As with a lot of the Carpenter movies, they don't they don't do very well initially. This is not box office breaking numbers that any
No,
of
it's
his
not.
movies do.
No.
But then it finds like a second or third or sometimes fourth life,
Yeah.
either on home video. Now we're talking about Blu-ray and streaming and all that type of stuff. And this movie quickly became a big favorite of mine,
Yeah.
not only in just the Carpenter filmography, but just movies in general. So, yeah.
You don't see anybody making these sorts of movies nowadays.
No.
There's nothing that really deals with this type of subject matter. They're very particular. All three of these movies seem to be, almost like an homage to Lovecraft and those extremely dark themes of his. But they
Yes.
don't directly adapt to it. They're independent stories. Oh, hold on a second. Trenchy's here, and he says, "Do you read Sutter Kane?"
Right, Trenchy.
now, Trenchy, I'm telling you right now, if you read Sutter Kane, I'm cutting the stream right now because I don't want to hear about any of these stories. Now, I just saw this movie yesterday, and I'm not falling for it. He also says one of the most underrated Carpenter films, This and They Live, get overlooked a lot. This is way more bleak, I think, than They Live.
Yeah.
Much more. Hold on. And he says
and more underrated too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we talked last week about how Big Trouble in Little China and They Live are his cult favorites.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that, the sort of, average moviegoer all sort of know because, well, those are the ones that just caught on. Kind of reminds me of a really fucked up version of The Truman Show in a way, though this is way better. Yeah, I never actually saw The Truman Show. I might have to get around to that one of these days.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But you're dealing with the trilogy where the Thing is the most humorous of the three.
Yeah. And what does that say?
yeah, exactly. It's just, but this movie especially, I think, is particularly thought-evoking by the time you get, especially after, and like you said, with a second or after or later viewing, and you understand what happens at the end from the beginning, and you see how so many things are just being set up so wonderfully. It's just fantastic. I mean, this whole thing that Carpenter has put together with all three of these movies over the course of 12 years, it's a real shame that, that more people don't know about them. And, if through our coverage, one or two more people, happen to check it out, then, I guess we've accomplished something.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this is good stuff, man. I mean, all three movies, they're done with master craftsmanship in filmmaking.
Yeah.
The scripts are tight. They're lean. You've got great actors in these movies, man. Sam Neill, Kurt Russell, Donald Pleasance, and great supporting actors in all of these. I mean, you got Charlton Heston in The Mouth of Madness. I mean,
Charlton Heston, how does he land these people? We've talked about Hal Holbrook. We've talked about John Houseman, and he just sort of caps it off by bringing in Moses himself, Chuck Heston, there as, the head of the publishing company that sends Sam Neill out to look for the missing author Sutter Kane. But through all of these movies is the recurring theme of the apocalypse. I mean, we've got the death of the individual we talked about in The Thing. We talk about the death of God in The Prince of Darkness, and now we're looking at what closes out the series, which is the death of reality.
Yes.
Which is touched upon in such a way it's more than a little off-putting. Again, also returning to the same themes of claustrophobia.
Yes.
As before, we start out with The Thing at the Arctic Research Center. This little sort of campsite. Maybe the size of a small neighborhood or something like that. But it's so secluded from the rest of the world that these people are essentially on their own.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Prince of Darkness, where we translate into that we shift over into this church where people are fighting in each scene, in each movie. People are fighting the apocalypse with the wider world having no idea that the apocalypse is being fought
Yep.
by this small group of people who have decided, well, they're not in a position to say no.
Yeah, they
They
have
have to
to
take
deal with it.
yeah, they have to take it on.
Yep.
Now it starts here in this movie in, I guess you could say, the town of Hobbs End, but by the time the story has already begun, it's already spread out into the world.
Reality. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
finally, David Carpenter has directed a movie where it doesn't look like anybody's going to be kicking the can down the road. This one is unavoidable, and I think that's what makes it the darkest of the three. The Thing ends on an ambiguous note, and we spent quite a bit of time in the four-person panel talking about who's really the Thing.
Yeah.
And again, it's it's a microbe.
Yep.
When we get to Prince of Darkness, we're talking about, at the subatomic level, an entire antimatter universe of things just waiting to come through, that are sort of looking at you from the other side of the mirror.
Right.
Waiting to sort of shift over. Here, reality itself has been adjusted by the writings of this author, Sutter Kane. And it's bleak.
And like you said, part of, just with you going through each movie like that, I think part of what makes it sometimes fly over people's heads is that these are things that you can't wrap your head around easily. You don't see them. This is not a guy in a hockey mask. This is not a vampire in a castle. This is not millions of zombies coming to eat your brains and stuff like that. These are things that are higher level and more thematic. And I think that's, to me, what I mean, and you know this already, but just to say it, I have seen all three of these movies a hell of a lot of times. Yeah. These are movies I just enjoy watching and like absorbing. And also sometimes I just like putting these movies on just to have them on, no matter what I'm doing, Yeah. And I think that's what, for me anyways, makes them last so long, is that they're just higher level.
Well, they're intangibles. They're intangibles. It's nothing you can put your foot on, put your finger on. And I was saying this, I think last week, it's not, or I think we were talking about this during The Thing. It's not Alien. It's not Ridley Scott's Alien.
Right.
It's not the Predator. It's nothing you can, openly defeat. And so I think I arrived at the conclusion that by the time we got to the last movie, I sort of have arrived at this place where I think that in each movie, man has failed. I think in The Thing, somebody probably is the Thing, and we all know that even if they freeze to death, someone's going to show up there and find them, because it's a U.S. government scientific, and then the Norwegians, someone's going to send someone for them. We clearly find out that, the quote unquote biblical apocalypse in the second movie has only been delayed through the dreams, where we see, the female character now appearing in place of the Antichrist. Right. As they try to beam back this information. And here, clearly, there's just no hope. Right. So I think you've got this situation where mankind is fighting this hopeless battle against these, Lovecraft styled creatures, these slimy things, in the dark that have been there all along. They just, they sort of either wake up, or, now they've been here all along and watching, and now they sort of make their move, I think, which is what's happening in the third movie. Yes. They finally reach the point where, they can make their ascendance out of the pit. And I found it was most interesting by the time we get to the third movie. The only time that I've seen in all three that they touched on something remotely biblical, considering it's apocalyptic. When they get to the church, you see those paintings of the archangel of Saint Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so you're led to believe that these are actually the beings that were cast out of heaven, and are now have been in this pit all this time. So, that's the level of reinforcement you're going to need, which unfortunately, poor Sam Neill is just, it's Sam Neill. What can you do?
Right. Absolutely.
We got Eric here, seen this movie 3 times, and I still have no idea what I've watched. That's because it's a fantastic movie, and every time you watch it, I think you can pick up something new.
Yes, it's true.
Because you're finding out that all along, even Sam Neill's character, Trent, is a character in a Sutter Kane novel. That's the entire premise that Sam Neill is trying to reject. I am not living in a Sutter Kane novel. Right. And then you find out that, of course, he probably is. Yeah, way more bleak than Truman Show.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Still got to see Prince of Darkness. Yeah, you do, man.
Yeah, man. Seriously.
That's a hell of a movie. And if you have the opportunity to watch all 3, I mean, even if it's like one a week, which is, what I did for the purposes of for the program, that's more than enough. And I think there was one we had to kick like a week. So over the course of like 4 weeks, I watched these 3 movies and it's just, they're unbelievable. And he says, at least with The Thing, they had a very small chance, but still a chance. Sam Neill in the world. Yeah. It's over. You realize, and that's what I meant by when you watch it for a second time, a third time, when you come back to it, you realize that kind of like The Thing where we talked about it, it's over in the beginning. Like
it's over before it's even started. Yeah.
Yeah. I said that, in the first 10 minutes of The Thing, you don't realize it, but it's over because that dog has already made contact with
Clark
and oh God. The other character whose name I can't recall off the top of my head, but Clark's already the dog's already made Bennings. He's already made contact with 2 of them within the first 10 minutes, but you don't realize that until the second viewing.
Right.
So again, there's this theme that it's over before they even realize what they're up against.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that when you watch most horror movies or even sci-fi movies, because there's a little bit of flavor of sci-fi obviously in The Thing specifically, but a lot of times there's at least some hope, or at least there's some levity or something just to, you know what I'm saying? But all 3 of these movies, like you said, they're just so bleak. They end on bleak notes. The hero does not win, and like I said, I think first of all, I think it was very cool that Carpenter took on these projects. That's number 1. Yeah. But number 2, I think that's a huge reason why they just kind of flew. I mean, I think we talked about this when we did Prince of Darkness. I think Prince of Darkness is starting to get, a little bit more recognition. It's starting to kind of move in that direction. Still nowhere near as recognized or appreciated as The Thing. Right. But again, that movie is 5 years older than The Thing. So maybe it's just going to take a little bit longer for it to elevate. Yeah. And the same thing would be true with this movie, because this movie obviously was, a couple of years later after Prince of Darkness. So this movie, hopefully, within the next, whatever it is, several years, people will start to realize that all 3 of these movies they're just great movies that you can watch and absorb. And to this day, all 3 of these movies, you don't see this type of stuff. No. You just don't, and that's something.
No, we've wanted to, see some Lovecraft themed horror for a while now. There was the idea that Guillermo del Toro was going to do At the Mountains of Madness.
Yes.
And he was set for that, but I think my understanding was that Ridley Scott's set design for Prometheus was so similar to what del Toro had in mind that he scrubbed his whole plan.
I heard that too. Yep.
Yeah. So Ridley Scott beat him to it. And then unfortunately, of course, the suit stepped in and took away Ridley Scott's vision for the Engineer series, and we ended up getting Alien Covenant, which nobody gives a rat's ass about.
Right.
So you're just like, okay, thanks, Suits. Yeah, we appreciate that, man. Not only did you swipe Del Toro off, but even the original vision that swept him off, gets taken off the table. So,
and of course, that's what makes these movies special as well, is because Carpenter, for the most part, and especially with The Thing for sure, but Carpenter for the most part was able to do. He completed what he envisioned. He didn't have the suits coming by and changing this and changing that and changing this and changing that. So he was lucky in a way to have done these movies in that, whatever that was, 12-year period or so, at a time when, maybe by luck or maybe because of who he was, or maybe just studios didn't give too much of a shit about it, but he was able to do these movies the way he wanted to do them.
Well, at least he had the opportunity, I think, to work independently.
Yes.
By going his own way, you don't have those masters, that you have to serve, at their beck and call, that have no idea what people actually want to see, or what horror fans actually want to see. And so he's able to actually create his own vision.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This was not even a Carpenter screenplay.
Right.
This was written by Michael DeLuca, who I believe had he has a bit of a horror background there. He has some Nightmare on Elm Street credits.
Yep.
I think Freddy had a series for a while. You probably would know a little more about that. So this guy had a bit of a pedigree in horror by the time he got to this. And I think originally Carpenter had passed on the opportunity to direct it. And it went to several other potential directors whose names didn't jump out at me necessarily. But then, of course, thankfully, he came back to it. And, we're here now, all these years later, 27 years later, talking about it because the odds are, if things had gone the way that, a parallel universe might have had, then Prince of No. I got this confused with From Dusk Till Dawn, because we were talking about how that almost became the second Tales from the Crypt movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were going to, and they ended up going with Bordello of Blood. I think this was too much for them. Dusk Till Dawn was too much for them. But then that probably wouldn't have been the same if Tales from the Crypt had gotten a hold of Tarantino's script, and then this movie probably it would have turned into and probably not the same casting. I don't think it would have been as good of a movie. But then again, here, another film which I think without Carpenter we probably wouldn't have gotten Charlton Heston.
No.
That kind of thing. Well, hold on. Freddy's Nightmares. Yes, Freddy's Nightmares. Yep. And that was a TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a TV series that was. It was interesting, to say the least. I think they were just trying to, do some cash grabs on the huge popularity of Freddy at the time.
How long did that last? That lasted quite a while. They milked that they were, and of course, and not to plug my own stuff, but tonight we're doing a ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And the thing that's funny is that at that point, in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, Freddy was so popular. I mean, he had lunchboxes, TV, T-shirts. He was doing MTV, 1-800 numbers. And of course, they do this Freddy series, which was on for, I don't know, maybe it was 2 seasons. It wasn't long lived because most of the episodes were not good. And it wasn't really about Freddy. It was like Tales from the Crypt. Yeah, he was like the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
Robert Englund was the host. Freddy Krueger was the. Well, I mean, when you think about it, and veering off for a second here, I'll bring it right back. But they had done slashers to death, and you cover slasher movies in your show. Starting with, I guess you could say the mainstreaming of it, maybe with. Carpenter's Halloween, and then we get to Friday the 13th and all. But then, they sort of upped it one, Wes Craven did, with a supernatural slasher.
Absolutely.
With this idea that this person could enter your dream state,
Hmm.
and kill you that way. So
Hmm.
yeah, I could see that. So I mean, they have this thing that they just kind of make a lateral move with.
Hmm.
It's the
Hmm.
same, but it's different. It's the
Right.
same, but it's different. And because it is, you could, you have this sort of virgin territory that you can just sort of explore,
Yep.
which, ended up becoming even a TV show for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're here, we've got Sam Neill, who's just in a fantastic role
Yes.
as an insurance investigator who is sent out to investigate a missing author who's like a combination of Lovecraft and Stephen King.
Yep. Yep. You're right.
And, it starts off with this idea that for unbalanced people who read his material, it has some sort of negative psychological effect on
Hmm.
them.
Yep.
And the movie sort of starts off with Sam Neill. He's being sent into a psychiatric hospital. By the time the head psychiatrist goes to visit him, he's requested only one thing: a black crayon, and he's designed his entire room in crosses.
Hmm.
Now, the idea originally comes across as to this is just sort of a gimmick, to make
Hmm.
himself appear more crazy because the doctor is David Warner, and
Yes.
I love David Warner.
Yes.
He was the highlight for me in the original Omen.
Yes, he
And every time
was.
every time I see David Warner, I'm like, okay, at least even if it's a movie I don't like, I'm like, okay, we're going to get a solid David Warner performance because he always goes for it. He seems to,
Yeah.
and it's
And,
always sort of a very understated kind of thing that he does.
yeah, he's so charismatic and fantastic. And he originally was cast in the role of Freddy Krueger before
Was he
Robert
really?
Englund. Hmm.
That could have been
Yep.
something. That
Yeah,
could have been
it could have
something.
been.
You could
Absolutely.
never dismiss David Warner. I mean, at that time,
No.
Robert Englund was kind of an unknown.
Yes,
By
absolutely.
and large. And, this is what put him on the map. And now,
Yep.
almost 40 years later,
Yep.
this is, he's kind of been typecast, but I guess, that's kind of a good problem to have. I mean, I
Yes.
think he just turned 72,
Yes, he just
so,
had a birthday. Yep.
yeah, that was, that's not a bad career.
Right.
I think generally as it goes, but he starts to spin this tale about how he's been sent out to investigate this missing author. The publishing house, which is run by Charlton Heston, sends him out to investigate this guy who's been missing for 2 months and is their top author. He's like their cash cow.
There's Stephen King.
Yeah, but of course, the idea is that if you read his stuff and you're not, wrapped very tight, it
Hmm.
could have a negative psychological effect on you. And of
Right.
course, you've also got the great Bernie Casey, who
Yes.
I always enjoy watching Bernie Casey in a
Yes.
movie, and it leads off with an axe attack.
Yeah.
Where okay, you could write it off as something crazy, but once you see the eyes, um,
Yeah, the double eyes, man.
yeah, seems to have like two unformed pupils that are trying to connect in each eye socket, and it's really
Yep.
sort of off-putting.
Hmm.
They send him out with Julie Carmen.
Yes. Yes,
Uh,
the great
Ju-
Julie Carmen.
yeah, the great Julie Carmen from Fright Night 2,
Hmm.
quite a few other. She's got quite a dramatic, actually, pedigree. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily focused on horror,
Right.
but good stuff. As she's part of the company that goes into this road trip to look for this guy, and they eventually arrive in this. That's where it starts to go into the Lovecraft kind of arena of
Yeah,
this
yeah.
town that doesn't exist. It just, it's this weird sort of experience on the road where only one of them sees things at a time.
Yes, it
You
was
know,
crazy, some of the imagery, man. And just to say, for me anyways, when I watch it, even right now to this day, it's such a cool setup. Everything you just talked about, as you were talking, I was seeing the movie,
Yeah,
and it's so cool because he's an investigator. So he's us,
yeah,
he's trying to figure shit out. And
yeah,
so are we as the viewer.
yeah,
And once he meets up with Julie Carmen and they go on this road trip, then again, it's like they're entering this unknown world. And it's fun as far as a story is concerned, how it opens up. And like you were just talking about, they start seeing stuff at different times when they're traveling, into Hobbs End, and all of a sudden they look down and there's no road underneath the car. It's
yeah,
just like an abyss, a black
yeah,
abyss. I was
yeah,
just like, oh shit.
yeah,
It's awesome
yeah.
stuff.
Well, I mean, before they even get to Hobbs, and there's this substantive conversation that occurs between Julie Carmen and Sam Neill, which is, on the nature of reality, which
Yes.
reality is really only the agreed upon point of view of the majority,
Hmm.
and so she sort of flips it on its head by suggesting, what would happen, that the difference between sane and the insane, what would happen to reality if the insane actually become the majority? Because by the time that they have already started this search, in the background, this vague sort of storyline in the media background, you're hearing about these riots that are breaking
Hmm.
out in the
Hmm.
bookstores, all the way from Boston to Philadelphia. So that's quite a stretch of the East Coast,
Right.
and so without you, at least as a first time viewer, understanding, it's already begun.
Yes.
It's already sort of begun.
Hmm.
Um, and she also addresses this other point, it'd be pretty lonely if you were the last person to hold on to the old point of
Yes.
view.
Yep.
She's like, that would be a terribly lonely thing if you were the last person holding the old, viewpoint.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and essentially that's kind of who he becomes.
Yes, that's what's so terrifying. I mean, she's talking about these things, and it's like putting these little hints in your
Yeah,
mind, these little,
yeah.
and it's like, wow,
It's foreshadowing.
that would really suck. But
Yeah,
like you said, that's what he becomes,
yeah.
you
And
know?
again, that's the difference between, the first time view and then seeing it again. You realize
Hmm.
how good this is, and like they're setting everything up,
Hmm.
without you even realizing it, which, can be like any movie that you see, a second or third time. You understand, well, this is happening. Okay, so this is happening. But I mean, this is actually applying to the concept of reality,
Yeah.
and what's actually real. Hold on, we got some more comments in here. They also had a show called Friday the 13th. That was, I love that show,
That was a good one.
with the great Roby.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank
yeah, with
you.
the redheads, man. Yeah, not a
Yep.
problem. Not a
Yep.
problem. Roby tracking down cursed antiques and no Jason in sight. That was
Hmm.
a great, great show.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
I may get motivated and see if I can find a DVD copy of that or something on Amazon, because that
Yeah.
was just. I'd like to see if it holds up.
Well, I'll tell you this, and it's funny you just said that because I was just about to tell you it. They do have, Friday the 13th, the series on DVD. I've got it,
Okay,
and I forgot how many discs it is. It might be four
well, it
or
was 2 or 3
six.
seasons or something, wasn't it? It was
Yep,
a few seasons. That
yep, yep.
lasted a while.
Yeah, and the thing of it was, um, it was a really good show, and comparing it to Freddy's Nightmares, which wasn't very good in general. This show was very good, and you didn't have any, like Trenchy was saying, you didn't have any Jason in sight. You got the great Roby doing her thing, and it was a very interesting show. But it is on physical media, and I actually, yeah, I watch it every once in a while. To me, it still holds up.
Okay,
To me, it still
okay,
holds up. But
okay.
yeah, you could probably find it on Amazon. I found it in a, but basically a, movie store. Not Walmart, but it's basically a place that sells,
Right,
DVDs and stuff like that. Of course,
right.
now we're at a time where physical media is starting to dwindle so much, which is so sad. But
That
you might be able to,
concerns me.
yeah. Yeah.
As the various distributors seem to pick and choose at times what they
Mm-hmm.
will and will not, um, publish or sell, or
Yes.
I find that I am much more comforted by holding that physical copy in my hand.
Yeah.
Be it a book, or
Mm-hmm.
a movie, any of those types of things. So
Yeah.
the digital world, I mean, it definitely has its advantages. It
Mm-hmm.
brings back the opportunity for people to see this. I mean, if you don't want to go out and spend $15 on a Blu-ray for these movies or something like that, or a
Yeah.
Carpenter box set, you
Mm-hmm.
can rent them for $4 on Amazon.
Right. Yep.
That's a fantastic opportunity, and it can be a one-off, that kind of thing, and then make your determination from there. But
Mm-hmm.
for the, I guess you and I perhaps stray into the area of the more serious collector.
Right.
I want mine.
Yes.
It's my copy, and then I can figure it out, because you don't know how long these things are gonna last, and you
Mm-hmm.
get good companies like Shout Factory that
Yes.
are constantly releasing, um, not always mainstream type material, but
Mm-hmm.
that's really good stuff.
Absolutely.
So Trenchy says, I love the scene in the movie where Sutter Kane changes the color filter to blue. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, that was a
yeah,
good one.
yeah. Did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue? He says, I like the show as well. Was introduced to it recently. The episode's on YouTube in good condition. Oh, okay. Marathon for Friday the 13th. Okay, so yeah,
Nice.
that's another thing. I mean, you can probably catch half of everything on YouTube
Yep. It's true.
nowadays. Practical is definitely safer. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Physical is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Physical is definitely safer. And Eric, Shout Factory pretty much has released all of Carpenter's work on Blue, aside from Halloween and Christine.
Yeah.
I have those two on Blu-ray, but not from Shout Factory.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got Prince of Darkness and Madness on Blu-ray from Scream Factory, Shout Factory, and they're wonderful, man. As far as the
yeah,
special features
yeah.
and the pictures, amazing.
They did. I think they did it. They were the ones who re-released Exorcist 3.
Yes. Yep.
With Blatty's original vision, which was much closer to Legion.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the material is not polished at all.
Right.
And you're looking at a very rough cut, but it's good
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that a few points, because I don't necessarily want to go down the chronology of the whole movie. I'm just kind of enjoying talking about the themes and jumping at this, that, and whatever. Was the painting in the hotel?
Yeah. Yes. That was some creepy stuff, man.
Yeah. It was very small things, and I
Yes.
appreciated. I guess unlike what he did in The Thing, and I don't know so much about maybe Prince of Darkness, but with the exception of a few scenes, one scene where you get a glimpse of the old ones, this, that, or the other, the Wall of Monsters. It was very minimalist.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, this was just 95 minutes. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a long movie. It's not pretentious, but again, great performances, great direction, great script, minimal special effects.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You find out every time in that painting, until finally, you see that Julie Carmen and Sam Neill are just transforming,
Yes.
eventually into these Cthulhu-like, creatures, which would just completely freak me out.
Yes.
With this church. You find out that the creatures, the old ones, again, the Lovecraft style monsters have been channeling through Sutter Kane now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is their sort of entry point back into the larger world, and that as I guess more people embrace this new reality, that's what expedites their sort of rise. And then of course you ultimately find out that even Sam Neill all this time has just been a character in a Sutter Kane novel. I mean, I think after 27 years, we can safely let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're okay at this point.
Yeah.
It's not like Underwater.
Yes.
Which is really new, and you want to give people an opportunity. That there's 27 years, catch up. You got to
Yes.
catch up at some point. But
Absolutely.
almost no humor in this at all. The only thing that you get in the sense of humor is that Sam Neill's kind of crass attitude, where he sort of thinks it's all a scam.
Yeah. Which was, and it's funny because as the lead, first of all, he's fantastic anyways. I mean, Sam Neill,
Always.
he's fantastic.
Sam Neill.
Yeah. And it's just funny because you're following him, but like you were just saying, he's so crass. He's so, he's pessimistic. Even Julie Carmen mentioned that when they first met at the offices and were going down on the elevator, and she's trying to explain to him, about this whole Sutter Kane thing. But his demeanor was just, it was something that was kind of, there was a charisma to it, is what I'm getting at. And to see his transformation throughout the film, as far as his personality, and we're not even talking about the physical thing and what he's going through, but just to see how his whole viewpoint changes throughout the film, that was kind of scary, because he's a no nonsense kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's basically what his job is all about, investigating fraud. So right from the beginning of the movie, you're meant to see him as the type of guy that can see through bullshit, and he's no nonsense, and he goes for a ride. Literally his reality is warped right in front of him, and that, to me, when I watch it, that's kind of a scary thing, because it'd be different if he was kind of, just a regular Joe, or just kind of wishy-washy. But his personality and the change he goes through, to me, that's a terrifying type of thing in and of itself.
Yeah.
But he's fantastic in this movie.
Well, that's another thing that maybe even the overriding theme of all of these is just, the loss of individuality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of all of these movies. I mean, in the first movie, you've got body snatchers. This microbe that's essentially a body snatcher. You may not, and we discussed this, you may not even know that you've been snatched.
Yes.
That sort of replacement is so perfect that you may not even be aware until it steps forward into your personality. With the second movie, you've got, possession, of a, sort of demonic sort. And then in this movie, reality is just, but the reality has already been crafted at the time that the movie first gets rolling. And you find out that the movie is, because they're going to release this, he's trying to prevent the publication, but there's no point. It's been published. That's a whole other thing. But then, of course, there's a movie, and you find out his entire story has been the movie.
Yeah.
He sees himself at the end.
And he's watching himself. Yeah.
Yeah, he's watching himself. He finally just, just gets popcorn and, sits down in the theater and just completely prepares to, join the rest of them.
Yep.
So it's rough stuff.
It is.
It's rough stuff, man. The monster effects are awesome. Yeah, they are. And I didn't, but he didn't depend on it.
Right.
He didn't depend on it. I mean, we have some of these halls of monsters, with the Clive Barker, Cthulhu, Hellraiser type things, going on. But they're very brief.
Yeah.
They're only very briefly seen. And for me, one of the creepiest scenes is when Jorgen Purtnow is reading Sam Neill looking into the abyss and seeing the creatures rise, which depends purely on acting ability. His ability to register, this sort of incomprehensible horror from the Lovecraft, whatever you'd want to call it, where you see these things, and if you see them, you'll probably go insane.
Hmm.
I haven't seen that really too much before.
No,
Um,
no.
yeah, where you actually get to see someone view it, and then just sort of register their horror. For me personally, you wouldn't have even had to see the monsters because
Right.
that particular scene was so solid,
Hmm.
but that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. But again, that's the beauty of the film is like you didn't even need to see them because
Yeah,
everything that came before it already worked your mind up.
it's already set up. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like you said, the great acting. Again, and I know this, some people that might watch this will say, yeah, 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 that's what people always say about, movies from, back in the day or whatever. But I mean, seriously, it's just too bad we don't see more of these types of movies, that just have the imagination, the tightness of the script, and it just makes you, it just affects you. These movies have affected us. They've made us think, they've made us wonder, they've given us a little taste of terror or whatever. And you don't have that a lot in movies today. You know, you
If
don't.
you do, they're very much of the underground variety.
Yes.
The
Yes.
independent films. I mean, obviously, Ari Aster hit us hard. He hit us with a sledgehammer between the eyes with Hereditary.
Yes.
Midsommar wasn't quite. That's it's a very difficult film to follow.
Yeah.
We've got, but they're not hitting us in the mainstream. You've got movies like The Witch, which again, really doesn't show you very much.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
it definitely can delve into that paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a couple of other movies that I've enjoyed, and we talked about A Dark Song, which
Mm-hmm.
again really doesn't show you very much,
Absolutely.
but completely gets it done through just great performances and fantastic scripts.
Mm-hmm.
There's another movie that I'm dying to cover. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called I Trapped the Devil.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay, it's about this man who literally believes he has trapped the devil behind a door in his basement. The devil has manifested himself in physical form, and he has trapped him behind the door, behind this door in his basement, this huge oak door, and he bolts this enormous cross onto the door. And
Hmm.
as he's trying to figure out what it is that he wants to do about this, because now he's got the devil in his basement. Like, what exactly am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
Um, his brother and his sister-in-law show up to celebrate Christmas.
Oh
And yeah,
no.
it's like his estranged brother that he doesn't really talk to decides at that particular moment that it's Christmas and he wants to make amends. But it is not a comedy.
Hmm.
This is a very macabre and intense horror film. So they are sort of making them, but you kind of
You have to
have
find
to,
them.
yeah, you have to look a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not
True.
like stadium rock. It's like these bands that are doing like a national tour of basements. And
Yes.
all their music is on like a Mixcloud or something like that. It's that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think that they are making them, and with you and I and others, um, putting this stuff out there and connecting, we can share it that way. I think there's
Hmm.
another movie coming out now that I just saw. I've been wanting to catch it for like 3 weeks now, called Sister Maud, which
Yes.
is this religious themed, and I'm not sure if it's apocalyptic, but it's this. There's a new string of like religiously themed horror movies.
Hmm.
Next week, I think, next week we're going to be covering another one of those IFC midnight films that A Dark Song came from, called The Devil's Candy. Um, if you get a chance on
Hmm.
Hulu, um,
Okay.
check
Yeah,
it
you would tell
check
me
it out,
about
man.
that.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
devil. We're going to be covering that next week, so it's
Okay.
out there. We got to dig a little bit for it,
Yeah.
but I think in the mainstream, unfortunately, and philosophically, you and I may have a difference of opinion on this. I think that we're getting hit with so many reboots and remakes and sequels that
Hmm. Yeah,
there's no room left in the artery for fresh blood.
I agree. And it's unfortunately been, and I know we're going all over the place, but this
Well, the
is really
movie's over, so
interesting.
now we can just talk about what the
Yeah. but
movie's
but
over
it's
with. Yeah,
but it's true because the whole idea of the remakes and the reboots, when that got super hot, back in the late 2000s, when they started remaking all the major stuff, and then they started, remaking some of the secondary, they started remaking stuff like Texas Chainsaw and Friday the 13th, and then they started to get the secondary stuff like, whatever, Hills Have Eyes and all that. But anyways, I think that some of the remakes were okay. There were a couple that were actually pretty good, but it just started this ball rolling
yeah,
where Hollywood really, looks at the major releases that it's got to be something that's familiar, that plays on the nostalgia of people, especially from our generation. And like you said, it makes it so that the smaller films that have immense creativity and craftsmanship, like A Dark Song or
yeah,
whatever, it's hard for them to find their way. Even movies like Hereditary, I mean,
yeah,
Hereditary, a lot of people know about that movie, but it didn't get that same pump that, a remake of Black Christmas did, which was absolutely disgustingly horrible. And it's like, it's too bad. It's just too bad. And who knows where this is going to go. I mean, obviously Hollywood, movies in general, not even just in horror, but in general, if it's not a movie that's a sequel or a reboot or an adaptation of a book or a comic book or an old TV show, or if you've had like the A-list stars in it, you're going to have trouble getting your movie out there. And
yeah,
it's too bad.
yeah.
That's it's just too bad.
And I think, but if you and maybe this is for the best in a strange sort of way, and that we just have to work a little bit for it, because I think a lot of the movies that will get brought in by the huge studios will be watered down and controlled.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago, we covered Blade, and
Hmm.
I love Blade.
Absolutely.
And people always say that, and for whatever reason, but I've seen tweets, and the performers have never said it, but that Marvel started with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst.
Right.
But and there's a picture of Kirsten, and they're swinging through the air, and I love that. I love Sam Raimi, and I love those movies. I love Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
They still hold up in a comic sort of way, but the
Hmm.
action when it wanted to be was good because it was Sam Raimi.
Yes.
But I mean, really, it was 4 years before that Marvel launched its cinema platform, and they did it with Wesley Snipes.
Hmm. That's
You
right.
know, but I don't think that Marvel would make a movie like that today.
I don't think so.
That was a
No.
hard R movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It
That was a
was.
gory, bloody, graphic comic book movie. And I'm saying all that to say this: they're about to reboot it.
Yes. Yes. With the
And
great Mahershala Ali.
yeah, but I'm expecting it to be watered down.
I'm expecting it to be watered down too. And
Disney is not going to.
yeah.
They're not going back to that Stephen Dorff, Deacon Frost kind of
Yeah.
vampire. They're not
And tri-
going back to Guillermo del Toro.
yes. Oh, Blade 2 was fantastic.
Oh yeah, yeah, among the
Fantastic
best,
stuff.
among the
Yeah.
best. And people forget that the first Marvel movies were horror movies.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
today you wouldn't be able. I don't think Marvel would make those movies. And we're getting, even the Netflix content from Marvel was so good. But they've replaced it with the Disney content, and
Yeah. I mean,
this
and
is
that's one thing that a lot of people are talking about is they're really curious to see how this Blade reboot or remake or whatever they want to call it, how this is going to work. Because again, the material is not PG.
no, it's not.
So, and obviously, as you just said, the Wesley Snipe movies, those were not PG. So I'm interested. I'm very, very interested to see what they're going to do.
I'm
You know.
curious as well.
Hmm.
Now I know that the first horror movie is supposed to start with the new Doctor Strange.
Hmm.
And let me say just real quick, I think that the major movie houses are doing these reboots to try to keep up with what's going on because comic books have just taken over everything.
Yes.
And now, so I think that's pushed really good horror to the indie houses. So we're still getting good stuff. But I
Hmm.
think the mainstream is largely dominated by Marvel.
Yeah.
And, perhaps to some extent based on what you get from DC from movie to movie. But
Hmm.
they're supposed to start with the new Doctor Strange.
Yep.
And then I think Jared Leto is going to play Morbius, who again that is not a Morbius the vampire. That is not a Disney movie.
Right.
I think that they're even supposed to do their streaming with Werewolf by Night. I've heard stories about that, and now, of course, coming back with Blade.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, I'm not betting my grandmother on it. That kind of thing.
Me neither.
Yeah. Uh, Hold on. So we got a couple of comments here. Eric's back. Nice cameo of John Glover at the end of The Asylum. Love Glover in everything, be it serious or campy. Yeah, and he is campy in that. He
Yeah,
just can't
yeah,
get that campy look off his face. I am not a fan of campy, but yes, he certainly played that to perfection.
yeah. He did.
The movie is essentially watching a man slowly break with which has been done many times before The Shining, Fade to Black, et cetera, et cetera. But this movie does so uniquely and makes you think,
Hmm.
questioning reality.
Yep.
Tomorrow night's going to be good. That's right. Eric and I are on here for tomorrow. We are covering The Terminator. So speaking of fantastic concepts, that's going to be a good one. Eric and I haven't had a chance to do anything together since we did Zombies Halloween. We did the Halloween and Trenchy. All right. So yeah, it'd be good to get some fresh stuff. I think it's out there, but you're not even getting it on Netflix. You're getting it on streaming channels like Hulu.
Yes.
That's where a lot of good horror is. If you go to HBO, you're getting mainstream horror, and they got good stuff. But if you want
Yeah.
the indie stuff like The Autopsy of Jane Doe, The Devil's Candy, I Trapped the Devil, all these, The Devil's Doorway, these types of titles, Hulu's a great place to pull out your stuff. A lot of new ideas either get shadowed by other works or the suit step in and mess up two of my favorite new movies. Devil's Carnival never got to finish their trilogy because of money issues. I don't know that.
Oh, jeez.
And the studio came in and scooped up the rights. Creativity seems to be crushed nowadays. Wish it wasn't the case. Yeah, don't we all, brother?
Yeah.
Yeah, characters like Blade need to be R. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Venom should have been R as well. I like the new Venom because it's silly, but not good representation of the character. Yeah, they sort of turned it into a comedy, but it is what it is at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to say something real quick, and I know she's never going to see this, but I got a bit of a jump today because I posted the ad for this show, which I always do the day of the show because so much changes in 24 hours on social media. But Julie Carmen took my post and put it in her story today. And
no.
Yeah. She says they're going to be talking about us on live stream. She took my IG post from American Werewolf, and somehow I didn't tag her. I wasn't even following her, and I don't know what was happening or what. She must have just been bored, and she stumbled on my post and put it in her story. And said, they're going to be talking about, her in the live stream and the movie in the live stream. So,
wow.
Every once in a while, these small things that we do, get a little bit of,
isn't that something?
Recognition. I thought that was really cool.
That is beyond cool, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna try not to fanboy too much right now, because I'm gonna tell you what, man. If Julie Carmen watches this episode, all I want to say is, Julie Carmen, you are amazing. I love your movies, and holy crap, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, we are
that's
fans, awesome. And I think at least I'll probably DM her and send her the link to the show if she wants to check it out. If not, then of course there's no hard feelings because she's already more than made my day here, and it seems
Absolutely.
that made your day too. So
Yeah. Let me know. Let me know what happens with it, man. Because
yeah, absolutely,
that is
absolutely.
awesome. That
Yeah,
is awesome.
yeah. And Trenchy says that's dope. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I didn't see that coming. So all right.
Wow.
Well,
I'm going to be going on IG after this.
I'm here too. Is there? I mean, this seems like we just hit an hour. So this seems like a good place to close it out. We finished the movie, so for the most part, I'm okay with, we can talk about whatever. Last week, we veered off. You're right. We absolutely veered off into, I don't know. And then Eric was heckling me with, what was that movie he was talking about? Was it Starman or something?
Yes.
He was
He's talking about
Starman. So, yeah, all right.
Eric is notorious for doing that. I know he's going to be tonight when I do my episode. I know he's going to be lurking, but Eric is awesome. He really is.
Yeah, absolutely. He knows his movies.
He's so
man.
funny. He does.
I hope that he gets back on the stream too.
Yeah, him and Frenzy. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was checking some of that Devil's Rejects, and that was interesting because they had two completely different opinions.
Yeah, that's what I love. That's what I love about with those guys is that they have these two different paths that they travel as far as when they're talking movies, and it's just fantastic stuff. I love watching their stuff. Yeah.
That's what I do, but I heckle. I was one of the old men in the balcony from the Muppet Show. Yeah, that's an accurate representation. Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Great review. Thanks, man. Thanks for stopping in. I always appreciate you guys stopping in. You guys are in here all the time. I always appreciate it. I'm just trying to balance, again, this thing between work and less screen time, because I spend a lot of time at work with screen time, especially now that it's getting warm out.
Yes.
But then I've got some time up coming off, so I'm going to have to catch up with some people in their shows, because I feel bad. People are always, stopping in, and they're always loyal just to say, hey, even if it's just for a second, and I rarely get to return the favor. So now that I have some time coming up, I want to, pay back. Thanks for the praise. Yeah, no, we appreciate you, man. Everybody that does this, is fighting the good fight for the return to long form conversation. We're here at a little over an hour, but some, these things can just go on and on and on. So every podcaster, is kind of doing their part for that. So, we're all in it together.
It's a cool community. And the thing of it is that, all of us, in some way, shape or form, like you were just saying, you need to catch up on, some episodes and stuff like that. But I think just being a part of the community, like right now, I mean, we're talking about other folks, and even just doing that, at least in my opinion, anyways, I think is doing your part as far as just trying to strengthen this community, and everyone doesn't have hours and hours every single day to check out every single person, and nor should that be expected, but just to be a friend in the community, to be someone that is supportive in any way, even if it's just on social media, giving a thumbs up or whatever. And I think that's what makes this community that we're a part of so special. You and people like Eric and Trenchy and Marty and Triv and so many others. I'm not going to name everybody, but it's a wonderful community. It really is.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to actually use the internet for a good purpose. Consider how far we are apart geographically.
Yes.
This wouldn't be possible through any other format.
Yes.
So I think we keep doing what we're doing, and encouraging each other, and helping each other out where we can, and that's good, because we all do it for the love of the films. So Well, I think that's a good. Hold on, two more comments. All right, and then we're going to wrap it up. You and Knight know I love to talk. Just love to talk movies. Good conversation has been dead for a long time on social media. The YouTube community is finally bringing it back. Yeah, I mean, I did this for another reason. I was looking to figure out the ins and outs of audio video, and I said, there's no way I'm going to do a podcast. So, of course, 3 weeks after I started learning ins and outs, I got a podcast. And you know, and I'm like, well, it'll just be a little podcast or something, you know. But you know, at least it's not politics. So you know,
Yes.
we're at a higher form than that.
Yes.
We all love movies, man, and now we have a place we can share our thoughts and shoot the shit with great people. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Some of my friends or, you know, people on my side of the fence, tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, you know, I'm on YouTube at the Night Watch Zone, and fortunately, we're able to do our shows 4 times a week. So, and we'll be doing something tonight. So it's fun. It's fun stuff.
What do you got for them tonight?
Tonight we're doing at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're gonna be concluding our franchise review of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So we're doing a ranking of all the movies. And it should be a lot of fun. It really should, because yeah, there's a lot to be said, and people, especially someone like Eric, who's a big fan of like you know, the remake and so forth. I know I know he's gonna be ready to give us some shit in the comments, but it's fun. It'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah, it's all good. So all right, so that's cool. The Night Watch Zone on YouTube. Tomorrow, Eric and I will be here covering James Cameron's The Terminator, which is probably one of the best movie concepts of all time. I saw this thing the other day, and we'll talk about it tomorrow on the show. The list, I just did a quick Google search of the best movie concepts, and the list that came up there, I'm like, really? You know, okay. So like The Terminator wasn't even on there. If you see this in the replay, please like the video, subscribe. We'll be here tomorrow at 7, Eric and I, and we've got 3 shows a week. Thanks so much for Knight for stopping in once again, and we got a chance to wrap up this trilogy.
Yes.
When I first came on, I said I wanted to do this. I said I want to do this trilogy, so now I've completed that. So that's another short-term goal accomplished. Yes. And stick around for a second, all right, after I hit the outro.
Okay.
Have a good night, everybody.